Hey there, my friend. Steve Gamlin here. Welcome to a brand new episode of the Motivational Firewood Radio Show. Today we have a great conversation with a dear, good friend of mine. We've actually met, and I actually do really like the guy. So today we're talking with Andrew Carlson. Andrew is a cellular health and wellness detox coach, guide, friend on your journey toward better health. And we're going to talk about a whole bunch of stuff. Andrew's not one of those people who got a $7 certification online and talks about this stuff. He has been through the mud, the rocks, the thunder, the lightning, the hellfire, and everything to get here, which obviously makes him an authority. So, Andrew, welcome to Motivational Firewood Radio Show.
Thanks for having me on the show, Steve. I'm super excited to be here with you.
So tell us a little bit about your background. Now, I can't imagine when you were a kid, you said, you know what? I want to be a cellular health and wellness coach for people. So what did young Andrew want to be when he grew up?
Well, what didn't he want to be? That's the first question. It was an actor, it was an astronaut, it was a chef, it was literally everything. I even went down the food science route and I was like, I don't even understand this. So if you were to go back in time and tell little Andrew that he was going to be a functional nutritionist who focuses on genetics and DNA and cellular health, I would laugh at you and say, that's never going to happen in my life.
As you were rattling those off, I'm like, okay, I can just see it now. The combination of all these things. He's going to be an executive chef aboard, the International Space Station, which means, of course, he has to learn some Russian dishes, and all these other things of where it could have gone.
Right?
But here you are, and I know the story behind. But why don't you share with the audience some of the scariest things that could have killed you but didn't, which helped to steer you toward what you're doing today?
Absolutely. So, starting off at when I was 22 years old, I ended up having to go and get heart surgery because my heart was going from basically resting heart rate of like 60, 70 beats a minute all the way upwards to 220, 240, 250. And then I would pass out. And then during that time, during the pass out, your heart could basically just stop, it could speed up, or it could just do random things. So they were like, whoa, 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 we need to give you a defibrillator. Smart move on their part because they were basically like, hey, we can't control this. You may be driving one day and all of a sudden your heart just goes crazy and you pass out. So you're going to be a trouble to society. So we need to put a defibrillator in you. And I said, great. Then after I got the defibrillator implanted, the doctor said, great, you're overweight, lose the weight. Pretty simple enough, diet, exercise, do that kind of stuff. Unfortunately, when I would exercise, my heart rate would spike up to 180, 190, 200, 220. And guess what would happen? The defibrillator would go off. A typical defibrillator, a healthy defibrillator, goes off once, maybe twice, and then the heart rhythm goes back to normal. But mine being a stubborn heart, maybe it's because my history and my lineage is Norwegian and the Vikings, and we just don't like things a lot, doing things that are supposed to be doing. But my heart rate would spike even faster, which meant that the defibrillator would continue to shock me a minimum of like 50, 60, 70 times within a couple minute time span. And it hurt. And it's one of those things where you're just laying on the ground, flopping around like a salmon. And everyone's like, I don't know what to do. And you literally have to utilize your mind to calm yourself down and bring that adrenaline down so your heart rate goes down. So that's kind of where I decided to go into understanding how the mind works, learning NLP and hypnotherapy, because then the doctor said, all right, we need to have surgery because the defibrillator shocked you so many times that your heart rhythm is not stable. So we need to go in, fix your heart rhythm, and then we can send you on your way. So then I ended up going on to the heart arrhythmia medication and then beta blockers that were supposed to help with things. And it was basically like I was stuck on this hamster wheel for the next 3 years until I was 25 years old, where I would get the surgery, the heart rhythm would go back to normal, and all of a sudden they're like, oh, by the way, exercise. I'll go exercise. What would happen when I exercised? I'd get shocked. And then I'd get stuck and suck. And then I built up this PTSD to exercise. And I built up this PTSD to all I want to do is feel comfort. So I was eating food that wasn't good for me, but it was like, this is the only thing I have. I can't do anything. So I was stuck on this hamster wheel. Now, by the third surgery, they were like, by the way, the anesthetic is causing issues. We can't actually, use anesthesia on you anymore because it's not allowing us to see the hole that's in your heart so we can close it down. So since your heart's not acting up while we're in surgery, we're going to have to do it without anesthesia. So then I had to use hypnosis to put myself under an anesthesia. And they basically just strapped me down with cables onto the bed, and they said, it's going to get hot because they're torching the inside of my heart and building scar tissue. So it would get upwards of like 500 degrees, burning scar tissue in to close the hole, but they could never find the hole. Finally, by the 10th surgery, I said, enough is enough. I can't do this anymore. I'm in my 20s. I need to be able to live my life. Turn the defibrillator off. And they said, all right, so we have to do one more surgery. They did the surgery. And the doctor told the night nurse, by the way, the medication that he's on for the anti-arrhythmia on an IV is toxic if we were just to pull it out. So we need to wean it down while you give him the oral medication. Now, she didn't listen because she looked at my heart chart and went, his heart rhythm's still not normal. So I'm just going to keep the IV in, and probably forgot to wean it down, but she kept feeding me the oral medication because that's what it said in my charts. So by 6 p.m. that night, I was with my girlfriend at the time, and I was shaking. It looked like I had Parkinson's disease. Like, it was so crazy. By 10 o'clock, I could barely hold my phone, and she was like, hey, I need to go home. It's been like 6 days in the hospital. I'm really tired. And I was like, please don't leave. Please don't leave. Something's wrong. And she was like, I need to leave, because we lived an hour from the hospital. So she went back home. By 3 a.m., I was shaking so bad. It took me about an hour to text her, get here now, something's wrong. And by 5 a.m., she walked in. And when she got there, I couldn't talk. Up here in my brain, I was like, what's wrong? Help me, screaming at the top of my lungs. But externally, I could only grunt. I lost all my ability to speak.
Wow.
I was basically minutes away from stroking out and dying. She actually had to run out to the doctor, said, something's wrong, come check. And he said, yeah, I'll check in a second. And she grabbed him by the ear and pulled him in and was like, you need to pay attention now, something's wrong. And the doctor just went ghost white. And unfortunately, they had to rip out that IV. They rushed me down to get a brain scan. And they saw that I was minutes away from stroking out and dying. And I wish I could tell you that's the last time I almost died.
Yeah. This is all by age 25
But
when some people are still playing Mario Kart in their parents' basement, and you've already gone through 10 surgeries, I believe you said.
yeah.
At that point. Wow. Now, and I got to ask this, after all the frustration of all that, you said something really brilliant in there too. You attached pain to working out. You were already associating that with a bad thing, which meant you started to eat unhealthy things and put on weight, which is also unhealthy for your heart and all of these things. So it just continued to take you down that spiral farther and farther. So now, was there one doctor or one breakthrough after that, or a moment that you finally saw the light, or when it basically told you, I've got to be in charge of this. I need to dig deeper. I need to learn more about this, because the people I trusted to save my life inadvertently almost killed me.
Yeah, I wish I could tell you that at 25, that was my moment where I was like, yeah, I need to start looking at things deeper. It wasn't. It was the moment where I just decided enough was enough, and I'm turning the defibrillator off. And if I actually die, so be it, because life's not worth living right now. And I had those thoughts, not that I was wanting to act upon them, but I was literally in those moments of, there was a 6-month period where I couldn't walk from the fridge to the couch or from the couch to the fridge. And it was literally like 15 to 20 feet without my heart rhythm spiking and being afraid and terrified that the defibrillator would go off. So at 25, after the 10th surgery, I was kind of like, enough is enough. And then I spent 6 years from the ages of 25 to 31 dealing with health issues, chronic pain, chronic health issues, being unable to lose any weight, even when I tried every single diet, went on keto, gained weight there, and you're supposed to lose weight on keto. I was dealing with low testosterone, low hormone issues, and just so much stuff for 6 years. And I thought, must be my genetics. Must be getting older. This must be what getting older looks like. I just don't have the good celebrity genes that everyone does when they're in Hollywood.
Yeah.
But finally, a friend was like, hey, I went through this really cool cellular detox program. And when we hear detox, we all roll our eyes because we're like, oh, another juice cleanse, another this, another that. And it's not that at all. It was literally like, hey, for 6 months, you're going to completely transform and eliminate the majority of stuff that you eat, because your body's such out of whack and in an unhealthy state where we need to get it to become healthy again. And then you're going to take supplements to help the cells open up, detox the toxins out, and allow your body to go back to a normal homeostasis or a place of balance state. And that's going to help you get healthy. And I was like, there's no way. But I was like, hey.
Yeah.
And she then asked me if I want to be in charge of marketing. And I was like, well, she went through a phenomenal transformation and she was a friend of mine. And I was like, I can help you with your marketing. And I said, I should try the program out too, because I'm ready for something to change. And then the day that I said yes was the day that everything just flipped. I didn't have to I went straight cold turkey on everything. And then I dove into my studies of becoming a functional nutritionist. And then I started studying genes and genetics and how there's this thing called epigenetics, and we can turn diseases on and we can turn diseases off. And all the diseases that I turned on, one of the biggest things, the biggest reasons was if I were to go back in time and tell you at 20 years old, when my mom was dealing with her own defibrillator issues, I looked up to God and I said, hey, if there's a God up there, if you could do me one favor, if you could take the pain away from my mom and having to deal with her defibrillators and put it into me, I would do anything to have that happen. Turns out that came true. Most people would say, that's just a coincidence. But I believe that because she had issues with hers, and all of a sudden, the day that she got hers taken out and basically never needed it again because she had complications and issues, was basically the next week I had mine put in. So
Yeah.
coincidence or not, I basically asked for it. But then it was, yes, it's in my genetics as well. And then I went through this transformation of literally watching how all of my issues that I had, including my high heart, like resting heart rate, started to decline. And majority of my symptoms disappeared all within 6 months because I changed the food that I ate. I actually looked at what was happening at a cellular level because cells duplicate themselves.
Mhm.
So if your cells are unhealthy, they're duplicating unhealthy cells, which is why there's a chronic illness epidemic. But if we were to fix ourselves at the base, at the root, at that cellular level, they go back to producing healthy cells. And that's basically how I got myself well.
Wow. And that's so similar. If you think of a parallel, metaphor, I guess, to that, we always talk about make sure you're surrounding yourselves with the best people with the best energy, finding your leaders, finding the sources of information that can help you to get a little higher up the mountain, but in a good way. In
Yeah.
what you've just said, what happens at the cellular level happens to all of us at the physical, emotional, mental, spiritual level as well, where if you continue to be hanging out with these people who are dragging you down, your energy, your faith, your core values and ethics, you're just going to continue to get more of those bad results. And you're going to actually go deeper into the abyss because the older you get, the harder it can be to deal with and get away from some of these things.
Mm-hmm.
And if people would understand that it's happening not just around them, but inside of them as well. If the same
Yeah.
patterns that are getting them to an unhealthy spot, say now, I've got a few birthday candles on you, I'll be 55 this year. But if I continued eating the garbage I was eating years ago, I survived 10 years in radio, literally on fast food and crap from my mid 20s to mid 30s. And I'm glad I'm not doing that now because I've been on a relatively healthy journey for the past 15 years, a very healthy journey for the past 2. And I already see the difference in everything around me. And I'm still working through and still learning. That's why I hang with people like you, because I learn from you and I don't follow the
Mm-hmm.
thundering herds through the drive-through every day for some deep fried, mixed stroke burger. I just don't. But so many
Mm-hmm.
people keep falling into that same pattern, and all they're doing is digging their own grave. Every time their hand goes into a bag of fries, they're digging a hole. So for people who might be, and at the time of this broadcast, we're recording it fairly early in a new year, which of course is the time of the year called the New Year, New Me, time frame. What can people start being a little more aware of? Maybe how they feel, how they sleep, their energy level, their heart rate, whatever it is. What are some of the warning signs? I know it's general to say this about the whole population, but what are some of the things that if people were to understand a bit more about the cellular level in their health, what are the things they could notice and say, well, hey, if you want this to be better, this can help there, this can help there, this can help there. What are some of the signs?
I mean, if you were just to wake up every single day, are you groggy? Chances are you're dehydrated. Most people reach for a cup of coffee, though. that's filled with not only coffee, but cream and sugar. So all of a sudden now you're getting an insulin spike first thing in the morning. And when you should just be getting water with a little bit of salt because you're dehydrated and you need some electrolytes. But when it comes from a general population perspective, I always just say, do you feel like you have boundless energy? You wake up every day ready to tackle and basically you're motivated to get through the day. And then by the time you get home at the end of the day, you're like, wow, I felt really accomplished. If that's not you, and you have aches and pains and you're like, oh, my lower back, I'm 30 years old, but my lower back is killing me. And like if you're like, oh, weird, I'm now having joint pain, or like anything that's not feeling normal, and we all know what that feels like. You know how it feels to be feeling off. Like even like I think I'm having a cold coming off, like I'm a little tense, like I'm a little sore, I feel a little chilled, like all of that stuff is not normal.
Mm.
Normal is feeling energized. Normal is feeling like you're neutral, in a neutral state, whether that's you're a little more happy, you're a little more uppity, you're a little more whatever, but it's being in a more neutral state where there's no pain, there's no anything, there's no grogginess, there's just is. So I want
Yeah.
you to start being aware of yourself and how you feel every single day.
Mm.
Because if you can't even get to that state, then you're never going to be able to go, all right, so where can I go from here? So just sitting in the how do I feel today on a scale of 1 to 10? How do I feel physically on a scale of 1 to 10? And jot all that stuff down. And then do you have any symptoms? One of the things that I always work with people when we're changing diets is we use something called a food, mood, and poop journal. And I know this is getting a little weird already, but we have to understand that the food that we eat, what happens in our bodies and how we feel after that, and how it impacts our mood, and if there's any symptoms that we have. And then our bowels, is it regular, of normal consistency, or is it loose, or is it too much? Are you backed up? All that kind of stuff.
Mm.
And then we get to know there's the normal, and then there's the abnormal. And most people have always lived out inside the abnormal, and they don't even know what normal feels like anymore. And normal to them is not what is actual optimal.
Yeah, and so many people might laugh when they hear that last part, but it's critical. I had
Mhm.
my very first, probably 3 months ago, colonoscopy. And I'm looking at the doctor talking about the follow-up meeting. I said, this is all stuff I never even thought of throughout my life. And they would ask me a couple of questions and there's a couple of polyps in there they were a little concerned about, but everything's okay. And they want me to come back in 6 months. And they asked me, the food you eat, do you exercise, drink a lot of water? I said, well, I'm glad I'm having this conversation now versus 3 years ago, because I was 25 pounds heavier. I would snack later at night, and that's not good. And the things I was snacking on weren't very healthy, but it was all this comfort, 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 comfort. Well, guess what comfort eventually causes if you have too much of it? Discomfort in issues in health and all of these things. And they said, had you waited another couple of years, this could have been a totally different conversation. So
Mhm.
I'm hoping people will not wait until they're 54 years old. The doctor told me 10 years ago to go get one, and I never did. And thank God I did when I did, because it could have been a much different conversation a year from now. But I've been on a healthy journey for almost 2 years, zero alcohol, much better food, enough water to drown a fish. And everything you're saying about the way I wake up in the morning now is so different from where it was 2 or 3 years ago. And I was using a CPAP machine a few years ago because my body was doing this very annoying thing called stopping breathing while I was sleeping. And even my neck was so much thicker. My face was puffier just from a very tall rum and coke every night, which was also not healthy.
Mhm.
And all of those things, the CPAP is in a box in the closet because I don't need it anymore. And all of these things, just with the subtle shifts that I've made, not even going to the depth of the things you talk about, made a huge difference. When that alarm clock goes off now at 5:20 a.m., it's shut off within 5 beeps. And then I count to 5 in my head. Both feet are touching the floor within 5. And I lean back, kiss my wife Tina on the cheek, and I'm rocking down the hall, already singing my first classic rock song in my head that I'm going to listen to in my AirPods while I'm walking a mile to just blow the rust off my hips and lower back to get started in the workout. 3 to 5 years ago, that would have been a little longer of a get the creaks out in the morning. But the food I eat, the way I breathe, the way I sleep, the way I take care of myself, the decisions I've made have had a big difference. on how I feel every day.
100%. And it's funny that you mentioned that how eventually comfort becomes discomfort, because what most people don't realize is when we're looking for comfort, what we're searching for and seeking for is a dopamine release. That's the feel good chemical for anyone that doesn't know that gets shot up into your brain. So, like when we're setting goals, you get a hit of dopamine because you're like, oh, this is exciting. I'm looking forward to life again. I'm going to accomplish all of these things. But then, unfortunately, your body is actually always seeking a state of balance, what we call homeostasis. So, what comes up must also come down. So, when we get the dopamine hit, our body's going to go, all right, we've had some pleasure. So now we need to balance it back out. Think of it like a teeter totter in a schoolyard where one kid sits down and that's pleasure. And all of a sudden you get hit, and all of a sudden the teeter totter goes boom. And all of a sudden you're like, oh, but now we need to get another person on the other side and it balances out. So your body's always seeking that state of balance with pain and pleasure. And pain and pleasure are basically the same thing on the same playing field. And most people don't realize this. That's like when somebody says you can't have just one potato chip, because you can't just have one potato chip. It's scientifically modified to make sure there's a chemical reaction of dopamine for you to go, oh no, I need more of this. And unfortunately, we live in a modern society of constant state of dopamine, where our threshold and our tolerance builds and builds and builds and builds. It's like once you start drinking alcohol, you can have one starting off, but then all of a sudden you increase it to two, three, five, six over time, and you're like, I don't feel anything from this anymore. Same thing with caffeine. So when we're setting goals, you get the first hit of dopamine when you set the goal, and you don't get the second hit of dopamine until you actually complete it. So the space in between the birth, and you can call it the death, like on a tombstone where you have the dates, but then there's that line in between. The line in between is up to you to make sure that you are consciously choosing to set yourself up for success, because the dopamine disappears during that time. And it's on you to continue to take the actions that are necessary to complete the action or the goal. Otherwise, you won't get that second dopamine hit. So then your body goes, oh no, there's too much pleasure in this, so we need to shut it down. And that's why we feel defeated sometimes. We're like, oh no, there's real work involved. You mean I have to eat healthy and go to the gym every day?
Oh, I hear it. These are the people that set goals, and you and I know, because we set goals very similarly. I'm, the visualization guy, vision board guy, go into depth, attach all your emotions and everything. Whereas most people, they set a resolution, the big three: want to be happy, want to be healthy, want more money. And they write the year at the top. And then at the beginning of the next year, they find that folded under the lamp in the living room so it won't rock. And they look at it and they go, crap. I know. 2023. Hey, we're all set. They don't change their behaviors, and they don't necessarily feel, they don't understand how far down it's dragged them throughout the year, because they're not focused on the dash. They're just, wherever they are, they're just in that moment. They're not understanding that you can use dopamine for good reasons. I mean, I'd say addicted to working out now, and walking a mile and doing the resistance bands and the dumbbells and hopping on the Peloton cycle. I love that thing. It's the greatest piece of exercise equipment I've ever enjoyed, and just set records for the most dedicated I've ever been to fitness last year. And I'm already off to a good start this year. It's a long year, but I'm just riding that dash, baby, straight on through. And everything I do now, I look at something that maybe I used to enjoy. I'll look at it and go, nah, it's just not worth it. I'm so focused now on getting healthier, and I'm by no means an expert to the level you are, but I know it's been working for me, because the weight has been consistently coming down. My energy level consistently goes up, and I just feel good, and I'm happier than I've been in a long time. So what I want to share here too is, Andrew can talk about this. Andrew's learned about this. Let's talk about the difference between Andrew with a 40-inch waist and Andrew today. And I'm pretty sure you're no longer drinking coffee all day plus energy drinks and still feeling dead tired by the end of the day, which I know you were in the past. Now, I've never drank coffee in my life. I've never been a coffee drinker. I was a rock radio morning show producer for years. I'm a morning super energy guy. Right around midday, I do like my little bottle of 5-hour energy, which is way better than 9-hour lethargy, which is what I used to feel like I drank. But that's it. Otherwise, it's just water. all day long. And I know it's not perfect. And some people say, Steve, those things are killing you. The first person that ever said that, I looked stone cold in their eyes and said, you realize you just put down your cigarette to tell me this thing's killing me? We're all doing stuff that's going to kill us. But how did you get
Mhm.
from where you were at, low energy, overweight, to where you are now? I mean, and not just, a broad brush, but what are the decisions you made and the actions that you continue to take to get there based on everything you've learned?
I mean, just like what you said, I had to make a decision. And I was finally like, I'm sick and tired of feeling sick and tired. Nothing has worked in the past. Traditional medicine has failed me. Doctors didn't know what's going on. Yes, they're practicing medicine, so I can't fault them, but they also made some poor decisions and they didn't support me. And I finally had to just take matters into my own hands and say, all right, now what? So then every day I had to say, this isn't worth it. I would reach for that coffee and go, it's not worth it. I would reach for the habit of driving through the drive-through. And literally, there were a couple times where I was like in the drive-through and I was like, I don't want anything. Why am I doing this? And I would
Oh,
leave. But I
yes.
was used to the convenience was a big thing for me. And if it wasn't convenient, then I wouldn't do it. So I'd try all of these diets and do all of these things, but eventually it became inconvenient because it was so much uptick and work up front in order to make it convenient that my body was just like, nope. My brain was like, no, we're not, this isn't worth it. But I was finally at that tipping point where I was like, this is life or death. So every day it was, I know it sounds funny, but it was I don't need that today because I created a dopamine hit for eating the healthy stuff. And I created the
Mm-hmm.
dopamine hit for going to the gym because I was one of those people that went to the gym and just faked it. And then I would stop going to the gym because I'm like, I was faking it. But when I go to the gym now, I go in with intention and intensity. And all of a sudden, I'm like halfway through, I'm sweating bullets now. And I'm like, this feels good. I feel strong again.
Yep.
And a little bit over time and over time. And I was tracking the weight, and the weight went up and down and up and down and up and down and up and down. And I was like, it's not just going down. And we have to understand that that's not normal. If it's always just going, that's not normal. Yes, over the course of 6 months, I lost 75 pounds by switching my eating and working out, and really making sure I was intentional. But then after that 6 month period, after being on a paleo focused diet, I started reintroducing foods. And all of a sudden, over time, I wasn't tracking what I was eating. And all of a sudden, I gained 20 pounds. And I was like, what is this? But it was
Mm-hmm.
my body getting used to the new normal again. And now that weight's starting to fall off again. So I'm happy that I'm like, oh, this is year two. We're in January. Like when we're recording this, is January. So now it's like, now I can do other things. But I also went on I'm going to start the bulking phase. I want to make muscle now without a coach. And then I started eating things because personal trainers post things about eating a bunch of stuff. I wasn't tracking macros though. In functional nutrition, we're not taught macros. We're taught how to eat to heal disease, not macros for performance. So then I had to hire somebody for that. But the decisions that I made was I'll wait till tomorrow. And then tomorrow came and I go, I'll wait for tomorrow. And I'm still saying, no, I'll wait for tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
It's like what Ed Milet says, just one more day. You
Yeah.
can stay on the path just one more day.
Yep.
When that next day comes, just give yourself one more day. And literally over time, 6 months, all of my health issues that I suffered from, the low energy for almost a decade, where I didn't get a chance to live in my life in my 20s and go travel the world like I wanted to. And I was stuck having to do all of these things, being stuck in the hamster wheel of the medical system, spending millions upon millions of dollars with my insurance. Luckily, I had insurance. Like, oh my gosh, if I didn't have insurance, I wouldn't be alive today.
Mm.
But it was one of those things where I had to make the decision that what I wanted tomorrow was more important than what I wanted today. And that's the big thing is I would be happy to wait a year now to get the result that I want, than go to a donut shop and get a donut because I want that dopamine hit because I know it's going to be delicious. And we have really good donut shops in California. And I don't know why, but it's like one of those things where,
Yep.
yes, I know food that I shouldn't eat and I know food that I should eat. But every once in a while, I get that little devil on the shoulder that's like, but it would be good though. And I know it would be good. And then when I eat it, I would take a bite and go, oh, it's not as good as I built up in my head.
we play that game all day long. I do it with alcohol. I mean, I enjoyed a very tall rum and coke every night at the end of the day to relax. And it's over time, that whole relaxation thing, it became like a dopamine hit. It quieted all the voices in my head, because we're entrepreneurs. We got a lot going on. We're constantly thinking. I'm a speaker, a coach, the vision board guy, I write books, I'm everything. My brain is on all the time, because anything can be material. But when I get into that tall rum and coke every night, and sometimes the second, in extreme cases, a third, and was downing a bottle of 94 proof rum a week at one point. And I finally said, I don't feel good. I don't look good. I don't sleep well. I stopped breathing when I'm asleep because I got so much fat in my neck. And Tina would wake me up. Honey, you're scaring me. Why? Because you're making this noise. Well, the noise was me not breathing, going like that in the middle of the night. I would scare the hell out of her. And I finally said, I can't live like this anymore, because I won't live much longer if I keep doing this. Going to damage everything else, because that's not good for your heart either. So it was just look at the rum one day and say, not today. I love that you quoted Ed Milet too, because I'm a huge Ed Milet fan. One day. The same bottle of rum that was open almost 2 years ago is still down in our kitchen on the shelf. And I just look at it when I walk by. And I'm not one of those people that says, get thee behind me, Satan, and throw it out. It's still there. I mean, if somebody wants to come over and drink it, they can have it. Doesn't bother me. One day. And now I just look at it, walk past it, give it the finger, and just laugh. Same thing I do when I drive past. Now, I don't go to our gym anymore, because we moved like 25 minutes away, and I can work out for an hour and a half at home in less than the time it used to take me to drive to the gym, change, work out half an hour, change back, and drive home again. And I'm finally disciplined enough to do it from here. That's a big thing that used to throw me, because I would just, tomorrow. Now I do it every day. And I used to, outside of our gym, it shared a parking lot with a McDonald's, and across the street was Dunkin's. And I'd be like, really? You put those two right, which I used to love, donuts and fast food, burgers and fries. So I'd leave the gym and I would smile. And when I sat at the red light to turn, I would just turn to the fast food place, give it the McFinger, and look across the street and go, up yours. I'm not getting in your line today. And it still makes me laugh to do that. I mean, these are just the dopamine hit for me is laughter and the joy of not doing something. And it feels good to say no and just walk away. All I'm doing now is stacking up how many days in a row I can say no. And that keeps me from wrecking it now by just going, somebody says, Steve, just have one drink. Nope. Don't want it, because I don't want to start over at one. And I'll probably love the taste, because once in a while I'll have a Coke or a soda, which is even rare now, and I'll drink it. I go, ugh, doesn't taste like coconut anymore. This sucks. All in the language we use, man, and the choices we make and how we feel about it. Like, I feel really great. I'm not denying myself anything now.
And I think that's
first
the
thing I
most,
drink every morning is a fruit and vegetable smoothie. I'm drinking things I couldn't spell 3 years ago.
and
And
that's the most important thing.
Yeah.
Is that you're aware enough to know how you feel based upon what you consume. And if you just do that one thing, you're going to be light years ahead of everyone else.
Yeah.
Because what's going to make you feel good in the moment is not the thing that's going to make you feel good in an hour from now. So if you eat or drink things that nourish you, because we all know that the things that don't nourish us, we know in the back of our heads, we go, we shouldn't be eating this. We shouldn't be drinking this. We shouldn't be doing this. But yet we still do it anyway.
Oh, yeah.
So that's a super important thing that you just said.
Yep. And I know why I want to be healthy as well. I mean, like I said, me and my wife, Tina, will both turn 55 this year. My dad passed away about 4.5 years ago. He had Parkinson's and some heart issues and arthritis and a lot of things that contributed that all put him on a relatively slow decline, but then at the end took him very quickly, which was merciful in life's little way. I don't want to be a physical burden on my wife, because my poor stepmom would have to pick my dad up off the floor because he was starting to have not only cognitive issues, but balance issues, and he would fall down. And I saw how she struggled and hated to call me. We live 9 miles away, hated to call me to come help out. And I said, I will never do this to Tina. If I can help it in any way, my why is her. It's my Tina. It's to not do this. So many people just, they won't do it for themselves, but if there's somebody they care about enough, they'll do it if they have a strong enough why. And that's a foundational thing for the work I do with people. But I'm sure you ask people as well, if they come to you, Andrew, I want to cellular detox, or I want to be healthier, or whatever. You must hear some very interesting whys from people.
Yeah. One of like, not only because family or themselves or that they want to get healthy. Some of them come to me because they go, I'm just sick and tired of being told they don't know what's wrong with me. I'm tired of
Wow.
being told from doctors saying that it's a hormonal issue. And when they come to me, I go, all right, just let me see your blood work. Let me look at it. And they go, I have my blood work read millions of times. The doctors always just say it looks normal. And I go, I know, but I look at it differently. So let me see it. And then I'm in 20 minutes or less, I'm able to show them exactly why they're experiencing the things that they're experiencing, what's going wrong, and why their doctor overlooked it. And they all 10 times out of 10 go, you're the first person that sat down with me and actually explained to me what's going on after years and years and years of not feeling good and having doctors say, we don't know.
Yeah.
And like, that's my drive. The fact
Yeah.
that I can do that for somebody and give them hope again, because I remember what it felt like to be hopeless. And like, where the head doctor, the chief of UCLA Medical Center, said the only way to fix your heart is to snip your spine. It's going to make you sweat profusely for the rest of your life. But if we snip that, we may have a chance to fix your heart. And I had to say, no, no way, because I'm not going to risk my quality of life for a maybe.
Right.
And that's the big thing.
Right. Now, for people who resonate with anything you've shared, and believe me, you just shined a light into so many dark corners for people who might be feeling pains like what you just said. Nobody can figure out what's wrong or what's impacting them or anything like that. How can people learn more about what you do and also about working with you?
The best thing that you can do is go to getlimitlesssuccess.com. It's my digital business card. You can text me from there. You can look at the different buttons where if you want your blood work looked at, you can do that. If you want to learn more, if you want to have schedule a call with me, it's literally all right there. I just want to help you feel well because life is so much better on this side of the fence versus on the side of the fence that I was earlier.
And if you could offer one bit of advice, something that life has taught you going from where you were to where you are now, to echo into those corners, just for somebody who is struggling, who just realized I just changed the date at the top of my goals or resolutions, and I don't feel any better than I did a year ago, or I'm just frustrated and I'm more depressed about it. What's one phrase, lesson, tip, tactic, strategy, bit of advice that you would offer?
I would just say use 3 letters, YET. You may not have completed it today, but you just haven't completed it yet because you haven't found the solution yet. You haven't found the drive yet. You haven't found the emotional reason of why you want to do this yet. But if you actually sit down and take time to reflect, and not just on what society tells you, because society is going to tell you a whole lot of stuff. New year, new me, this is why you should want to lose weight. But I didn't want to lose weight to lose 75 pounds. I wanted to get healthy. And that's how my weight fell off. It melted off. People were like, how are you doing that? And I was like, I'm focusing on getting healthy. So the number one thing for you is if you're struggling to feel well, you just don't feel well yet, but you're literally working towards it. And as long as you continue the pursuit of seeking answers, you will eventually find them. And even if it's reaching out to me, if I don't know the answers, I know somebody who does. And that's the most important aspect of it is YET. Yet is going to be the most powerful thing. And as long as you combine that with one more day, you're golden.
Love that. Now, see, that's why we're brothers. That's why we run together. And that's why you are here as my guest, Andrew Carlson, on the Motivational Firewood Radio Show. Andrew, thank you so much for being a part of it and for sharing your expertise, your heart, your soul, and your story with all of our listeners.
Thanks for having me.